pray. Oh Lord, you are the concealer and the revealer of all that we find in our lives. Help us to do the same. Help us to provide and reveal and demonstrate all the gifts that your Son provided in his teachings as we move about your community today and every day this week, ensuring that the community experiences firsthand those lessons revealed in his teachings. Amen. Well, good morning. Good morning. It's been quite a week for this congregation. Lots going on. Good, bad, otherwise. So we'll find out, I think, when we get to prayer time. As the proverb told us, God delights in concealing some things and revealing other things. Makes God sound a little devious, doesn't it? But in truth, God does conceal some things because we need to discover things to be engaged. If we were just handed everything or we were given the plan for our lives, that's what we would do. That would be so unexciting. So we're here in this life to learn and to teach. We're here kind of on a scavenger hunt to figure out what it is we are to share with one another, what it is we are to do, what it is we are to seek. This proverb is titled in one of my Bibles, "The Right Word at the Right Time." Don't we all wish we always had the right words at the right times? Words can be limiting, but words can also help us in our journey. And our journey is like that of the silver and the silversmith. Silver comes with impurities, as the proverb told us. But the silversmith removes those impurities and crafts a beautiful work of art. Such is life. We come with impurities and we are encouraged to refine ourselves each and every day, little by little. Through the right words from others at the right times, with the right discoveries as we journey on our quest. Sometimes we travel and learn alone. And sometimes we have a great entourage that travels with us. Yesterday there was a story on CNN about two women in Natick, Massachusetts. Two women who for many years have been in a committed relationship and were delighted to marry this past year as part of the change in our legislation in this country that acknowledges that they have this right. They lived in a nice house in a nice suburb and had for several years. And so they treated themselves to a trip. And Carrie and Lori Riding went on a trip, and when they came home, they found that their rainbow flag with the word peace that they had put on their front porch in memory of the people who were killed at the Pulse nightclub in Florida had been taken, and that the front of their house had been extensively egged. And they were very, very distraught to think this would happen in this nice suburb that they lived in, and that possibly one of their neighbors might have been responsible. But the neighborhood did something. They decided they would post flags too. And so one by one, almost everyone in the neighborhood posted a rainbow flag with the word peace in front of it in solidarity with their neighbors. They might not support everything about all of their neighbors, but they knew that they needed to be in solidarity as a neighborhood against the people who came into their neighborhood and did damage to Carrie and Lori's house. They were going to stand together. And they did, very visibly stood together against this bad behavior. Carrie and Lori were very moved. They were in tears as they were being interviewed. They knew their neighbors, they liked their neighbors, but they never expected their neighbors to stand in solidarity with them. An opportunity for them to not seek alone as they thought they were, but seek and learn as an entourage. And the art on the bulletin cover shows multiple woven blankets side by side. And you know, those threads are all beautiful together. They make beautiful, beautiful blankets. But if you look on the right-hand side, or throughout actually, you'll see little white threads. Well, those little white threads wouldn't be very sturdy all alone, would they? They'd be a thread laying on the table. But with the black or the purple or the blue beside that white thread can stand there woven within the others and be a beautiful blanket that keeps us warm and provides a bright and beautiful wrap. And just like that white thread, each of you is individually placed on this earth for a specific purpose. And also to work together, to be strong, side by side, witnessing to the things that are not always so pleasant. You know, sometimes we don't know the time or the place of an expected outcome. This week, while I was having plumbers put my house back together all day Friday, so it's amazing what a little bit of water in your house can do to get you all kinds of attention and take out a whole lot of money out of your savings account, but hey, that's all right. We have it all fixed. But the other gift that it gave me was a day to read a book. A day because I had nothing to do but sit and answer questions for the plumbers as they wandered around doing what they were doing best, of which I'm very glad and thankful they were there. So I went up to my reading pile, which is a pile of books that's from the floor, much taller than I am, books that I've bought that I would like to read this one day. And I just never have time. And now while I'm unemployed, I'm working my way through that book. It's really, really, really kind of nice. That book pile hasn't gotten significantly shorter, but it's gotten slightly shorter. But the book I picked out to read was this book by John Pritchard called Living Faithfully, Following Christ in Everyday Life. It's a fairly new book, and I thought, well, you know, it might be a good little book to teach me something. And I found some really good little gems in this book. And so, for all of you, for those times when you have looked for an answer and you haven't received an answer, you've prayed, God, just tell me what to do. And it's been quiet. You know, it isn't that God is ignoring you, but it's that God knows that you need to find your way through that decision yourself. A man was wandering through the heat of the desert. He seemed to be looking for something. His name was Macarius, and he would become one of the founding saints of the Egyptian Coptic Church. His problem was that he knew what God was calling him to build a monastery, but he didn't know where. He searched the wilderness and asked God to show him the right place to build it. And he prayed, please show me. Give me a sign. But all was silent. At last, after another fruitless day, an angel appeared with a message from God. The Lord is not going to show you where to build your monastery, Macarius. God wants you to choose that place. Because if God tells you where to build it and things go wrong, you will only blame God. So you must choose. You must choose. Even though we're in relationship with God, that doesn't mean we're simply robots who listen and carry out everything we do at God's direction. We have all the details for our plan and for our lives in our hearts and our heads. We don't always follow the steps exactly because we were given the ability to make adjustments as we go. We must decide our path. We must decide our direction. We must decide our focus. We must decide our next steps. We must choose where the monastery in our life will go. Sometimes that doesn't sound very efficient to me. If we are just allowed to choose our own spots, to put things on the flip side of that, look at what we learn along the way. And when we find our way to a finish line on a particular project, we can be triumphant. We can know we did our work and we did it well. We're asked daily to make choices, to decide directions, daily to come and to go in people's lives. It isn't always easy. But with each decision, the richness of our own life grows, sometimes in happiness and sometimes in sadness. As I restructured my week to allow for plumbers, I received a text from a good friend. And she asked if she could come and visit. And I said, sure, come on down anytime. She said, good, I'm at the Baldwin exit. I'll be right there. I thought, why? Okay. I said, well, come on down. The plumbers are busy in the house. I've got food. We'll find you something to drink. Come on down. So she came and she joined me. And what I found out was that her husband had gone to Florida for work that week, and that she had to put her dog down. A dog that she had had for 12 years. And she was sad and didn't want to stay in her house, which I fully understand. So she came down and settled into my guest room and went off and visited her kids and grandkids who live in the area. And back and forth, we sat and had many meals. 3. But it gave us an opportunity to chat and to share food and to talk about our day and to share tears and to talk about what the plumbers were doing and what was going on in my backyard and how she missed Maggie and how Dave felt bad because he was in Florida. And I got to talk to Dave and he got to say, geez, I'm so glad she's at your house. And I said, no problem. I'm glad she's at my house too. It was nice that someone trusted me enough to walk with them in their sadness. And that's where we learn. That's where we teach. That's why we're here. We need to be here with open hearts and open minds. We never know when we might be receiving a sign. That wasn't how I had my week planned at all. But the things that I didn't get done will wait until I have time to get them done. It was okay. And sometimes when we're seeking to make decisions, this is how God assists us. God got me to read a book. God got me to have a wonderful visit with Kathy, someone I don't see all that often. As Woody Allen would say, as he talked about getting signs for how your life would go. If only God would give me a really clear sign. Maybe make a large deposit in my name in a Swiss bank account. That would be great. Something just subtle like that, then I would know what it was I was supposed to do. But God's signs are more subtle. And we are called to use our knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. We're called to make decisions and pursue a path for our life. And often, we don't even know what's around the next corner. We don't even know if we're on the right path. As I've said before, it's kind of like sometimes like walking on a dark road. And the only way you know you're on the road is you feel the crunch of the gravel under your feet, and you know that's the shoulder. And you turn away from the shoulder and back onto the road. And you continue to work, and you keep working up that pavement until you come to a place that has more light. And you can see where you're going, and you can see what it is you're to do today. Or that there is a sign from God. And to get there, all we have to do is follow the teachings, work together, share information, witness to those along the way, encourage others to walk with us. Continue to learn, continue to teach, continue to bring hope and witness and events in our lives and to the lives of others that we encounter. It is in this engaging in our lives and the lives of others, sometimes for short periods of time, sometimes for longer periods of time, that we learn to make the decisions about the path of our lives and the tapestry of our lives and the content and the destination of our lives. One of the videos I posted to the Facebook page this week, you may have seen it, is about a homeless man. It starts with the homeless man asleep on the bench, his head on his backpack, his jacket on, laying there beside him, sound asleep. And a young man walks up and lays money between the backpack and the jacket. And when the homeless man awakes, he finds this marvelous gift. And he can't really believe that this money was laying there. So he gathers up his things, few as they are, and he walks down the street to Target. And pretty soon he comes out of Target carrying 2 bags with his backpack on. And he returns to the bench. Now we have no idea what he's bought, what he spent his money on. And while he's sitting there on the bench, a young man comes and sits on the bench right beside him. And he's talking on his phone. And he's saying, I know, but I need to borrow some money. I need to get my daughter some medicine. I don't have enough money this week to do it. She relies on me to get this medicine for her. Can you help me out just a little bit? And the conversation goes on with his friend, trying to figure out if the friend can loan him some money. And he says, well, I thank you for your consideration. Let me know. I'll call you back a little later. And he hangs up his phone and he's sitting there on the bench. And of course the homeless man with his backpack and his 2 Target bags has heard this conversation. And he looks at him and he chats a little bit about what the situation is. And he says to the young man, can you stay here for a few moments? And the young man says, sure. And he hands him his backpack, which I thought was pretty monumental. Everything the man has is in that backpack. He hands this backpack to this young man that he just met, picks up the 2 Target bags, goes back to Target, returns everything he bought, and comes back and hands the money to the young man. He says, sounds like you are in tougher need than I am. And the young man says, well, what did you return so that I might have this gift? And the homeless man said, oh, they weren't things I really needed anyway. It was a blanket and a pillow. I've been doing without them. I can continue to do without them. But your daughter needs her medicine. The young man said, thank you. And then explained to the man that this had been an experiment. Handed him back the money and some more. The homeless man was moved to tears. The young man saying, thank you. Thank you for being Jesus right here. The least to whom we might expect to redirect the life had this been a real situation. This homeless man who had virtually nothing, who had just gone and bought a blanket and a pillow, but returned them for this young man. He understood what it was like to live like the disciples, to live with virtually nothing. And that these were additional gifts in his life he could be okay without. That's what it means to live like Jesus. That's what it means to live out the New Testament. And that's what Hebrews tells us. Hebrews is the, hey, let's get it in action book. We've already talked about that as we've read from Hebrews this month. It's the, okay, so you learned all the lessons from Jesus. Now, how do you put these into practice? So from chapter 13, we hear a message about Jesus doesn't change. Stay on good terms with each other, held together by love. Be ready with a meal or a bed when it's needed. Why? Well, some have extended hospitality to angels without even knowing it. Regard prisoners as if you were in prison with them. Look on victims of abuse as if what happened to them had happened to you. Honor your marriage and guard the sacredness of your life. Don't be obsessed with getting more material things. Be relaxed with what you have. Since God assured us, I'll never let you down, never walk off and leave you, we can boldly quote, God is there. God is ready to help. I'm fearless no matter what. Who or what can get to me? Appreciate your pastoral leaders who gave you the Word of God. Take a good look at the way they live and let their faithfulness instruct you as well as their truthfulness. There should be a consistency that runs through us all. And for Jesus doesn't change. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, He's always totally Himself. So let's go outside where Jesus is, where the action is. Not trying to be privileged insiders, but taking our share of the abuse in the name of Jesus. This insider world is not our home. We have our eyes peeled for the city about to come. Let's take our place outside with Jesus. No longer pouring out the sacrificial blood of animals, but pouring out the sacrificial praises from our lips in God's name and in Jesus' name. So let's go outside. That's where Jesus is. Stay on good terms with one another. Hold yourselves together with love. It takes a whole community or friends, at least friends who will help if they can or just walk with you. I have to say, as I read that chapter in verses 7 and 8, I was a little apprehensive to read that out loud. Appreciate your pastoral leaders. No pressure there. I don't know that biblical leaders or pastoral leaders have always been fine and infallible leaders. You know, we're humans too. And maybe we have a little more study, a little different wisdom, a little different path or perspective. But I kind of have to study those verses a little bit, because I would say to you, listen to your pastoral leaders, but remember, your path is your path. And even pastoral leaders can kind of make that journey a little messy. My life is very messy. Probably because I don't listen very well. So it inflicts itself upon my learning. I have to be taught things repeatedly in order to get them through my own personal attitude about what I know and don't know. And that's okay. That's why God's here. God's here to teach those lessons. Our friends are here to teach those lessons. The outside world is here to teach those lessons. What we need to do, though, is go outside into the world to teach and to experience and to learn. You don't get that experience sitting in the house or on your back patio or on the park bench necessarily. You know, a friend shared a story of a woman in her neighborhood whose husband had died about 4 or 5 years ago. And she wouldn't answer the door when the neighbors went to check on her. She wouldn't pick up the phone when they called her. And they really didn't know what to do with her. And suddenly, about a month ago, the sheriff's deputies arrived. And they took her out of her house. And they returned in hazmat suits to clean her house. And she became a ward of the state. She apparently had no family. And so when her husband died, I mean, we could spin a lot of stories. Nobody in the neighborhood even knows exactly what happened. You could talk about depression. You could talk about fear. You could imagine what kept her inside that house, but she never came out again until those deputies came and got her. It makes me sad to think that that would happen to someone. I wish she'd opened her door. I wish she'd let someone assist her on her journey. I wish she'd had family. But apparently that was not the case. But it reminded me that I need to go outside, that I need to engage with people, that I need to step out of my house, because there's no other way to be committed to the work of Jesus than to be out in the world of other people. We need to get acquainted in our neighborhoods so that others can stand with us, so that others know who we are and know what we're about and can aid us in our work. Sometimes living is messy. Sometimes it's very difficult and it breaks our heart. But the best way out of those times, or to heal from those times, is to join with another's heart, to work with other people, to reconcile the situation to the best of our ability, even though it will take time. It will take many days of journeying. It may take many witnesses to come and join us. It's hard to know exactly what will help us turn the corner. But it won't be sitting alone. Sitting alone, not engaged with the world that Jesus was engaged with every day. It is in that engagement that we begin to rebuild ourselves, rebuild our energy, because there will be other things that we need to deal with today and tomorrow and the next day in order to find our path, in order to refine our silver, to become the life vessel that we can become. In Africa, they have a thought that they live by. You know, here we're into rugged individualism. I think, therefore I am. I can do it all right here. That might be one of the biggest and unfortunate fallacies we ever taught in the United States. I think, therefore I am. I can do it all myself. In Africa, they would prefer, I am because I belong. I am because we belong. That's the way they would broach the topic in South Africa. A white soldier and a black woman confronted each other at the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. After apartheid, the Reconciliation Commission was set up so that blacks and whites could meet one another and forgive one another, if possible, or find a way to coexist. But the hurts were not just swept under the rug and ignored. A white soldier and a black woman confronted each other at the